For more on U.S.-Mexico relations and what lies ahead, let me turn to Eric Farnsworth. He's the Vice President of Council of the Americas, an organization dedicated to promoting free trade and open markets. Eric, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to begin with the wall that Donald Trump has pretty much threatened to build, dividing U.S. and Mexico. He said Mexico would pay for it. First of all, can he technically build a wall? Mexico has already hinted they're not paying a cent for any of this.
Well, just in terms of the geography alone, this would be a tremendously difficult project. The border is 1,800 miles, almost 2,000 miles long. It's over some very forbidding terrain, some deserts, some gullies and valleys. It's really difficult engineering project. That says nothing about the cost. That's just the ability to build it. I think what we're going to see over time is that this desire to build a wall is going to turn into more of a figurative issue in terms of a virtual wall that he might tend toward, but it does send a certain signal to the Mexican government and people in terms of the desire of the United States to build that relationship with Mexico, and I think ultimately that's the real issue.
There was also a lot of name-calling during the presidential campaign. I mean, offensive, ugly words towards Mexican Americans, immigrants from Mexico, calling them rapists and criminals. What do you think the reaction in Mexico has been to all this nasty name call?
I think, by and large, the reaction has been very restrained from Mexico. Sure, there have been some outbursts and some bursting of piñatas shaped like political figures in the United States and such. But by and large, I think Mexico has recognized that this is a highly charged political moment in the United States and has let some of that steam blow out of the system. I think what we're going to see, however, is that if this rhetoric and if this approach continues after the inauguration in the United States, you're going to see the Mexican people react more directly, perhaps more aggressively. And let's not forget, Mexico has its own elections in 2018. This could very well give impetus to a populist candidate in Mexico itself who can feed off this in the United States. And so you have self-reinforcing political issues. And I think ultimately that would be self-defeating for both countries.
And if that polarizing tone continues once he takes the oath of office, how will it view in Central America, in places like Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, poor countries like Guatemala?
You know, the irony here is that in order to help address some of the issues in Central America, whether it's economic, immigration, security issues, the United States really needs the cooperation of Mexico. Because if you look at a map, directly between Central America and the United States is Mexico. And so to the extent we have a good relationship with Mexico, that cooperation is more forthcoming and more likely. To the extent that relationship is broken, then we've got some more difficult days ahead with reference to Central America.
And finally, Eric, I got to ask you about China, because if Donald Trump damages that relationship with Mexico and these countries in Central America, China could be seen as a much better friend to the region.
You know, this is something that we're seeing increasingly, particularly since the APEC meetings in Lima, Peru, which I attended in November. We're seeing a real shift in the region. Mexico hasn't really been part of that shift to this point, because the Mexican and Chinese economies in some ways are competitive, not collaborative. But to the extent Mexico itself sees a need for diversifying away from the United States, the obvious new partner there is China. And we do see political level contacts increasing between China, between Beijing and between Mexico City. So that is definitely something to watch. But I think ultimately the Mexican economy will continue to be linked to the United States. The question is, what will be the nature of that relationship, and will it be ultimately as positive as it could possibly be?
And Eric, very quickly, can Donald Trump renegotiate or terminate NAFTA?
Well, the United States can pull out of it, yes. Any party to the agreement can pull out of it. The question is that ultimately what he intends to do? Is this a negotiating tactic? I don't think we ultimately know. We'll have to see. My own personal view is that NAFTA, when it was passed, was cutting edge. It was something that was a very good thing. It's proven its worth. The question is, can it be updated? I think it probably can be. The question is, can you do that without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? And that's what we have to be careful not to do.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Eric Farnsworth, thank you so much.
Thank you.